In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Christos Voskras. Some of you might not be familiar with a concept or a word that's used very often these days, especially with respect to social media. The word is memes. I'm a little bit unfamiliar about it myself. I had to ask my kids, what is a meme? And Roman said, it's like usually a comedic kind of caption or an image which sort of expresses one's thoughts or a sentiment, if you will. And there's some pretty good memes out there I find amusing. There's one, it's kind of a picture of a billboard in front of a Dairy Queen restaurant, and the caption on the billboard says, you can see the DQ sign in the background, and it says, ruining, and this is in January, and they put it up, ruining your New Year's resolutions since 1962. That's a pretty good one. My cousin Tim a lot, he's posted some really good ones, particularly those that deal with grumpy old men, because he would know. There's lots of really good ones. But one he posted was early on in the pandemic here. He posted a meme of somebody saying that, I can't help but think, but I'm the cause for this because I didn't share a meme with 5 other friends, that they broke the superstitious trend. But one of the best ones I think I've seen just a few days ago, and it's a cartoon from the New Yorker magazine, and it shows a fitness trainer leading an online video workout, right? So there's this woman, she's dressed in her workout gear, and she's laying on a mat, and she's on the video screen, and she's surrounded by weights and other gym equipment. And the caption under the cartoon, it reads this, it says, if you don't have weights at home, try using canned food or the psychological burden of simply existing in this world. I thought that was a really good one. And I think it really does speak to perhaps what many of us are experiencing in these days. According to an article on social isolation in Psychology Today, this is what it says. It says, humans are hardwired to interact with others, especially during times of stress. When we go through a trying ordeal alone, a lack of emotional support and friendship can increase our anxiety and hinder our coping ability. An isolated person may experience loneliness or low self-esteem. And over time, a person may develop social anxiety, depression, or other mental health concerns. In fact, you would think that it just happens to people who are isolated by themselves, single people. But in fact, studies have shown that even being isolated in small groups, people can share the same symptoms. So even our families are at risk. The woman at the well in today's gospel shows all of these symptoms in her conversation with Jesus. Rather appropriately for our times, this woman was, in effect, self-isolating, not through fear of contagion, but due to social norms around shame and dishonor. Maybe she had been hurt by too many malicious comments from her more respectable neighbors. Maybe she was blamed for every wandering male in the community. Whatever the causes, we can picture a woman isolated from her neighbors, physically and socially, and all too aware of their contempt and judgments. Her conversation with Jesus is the longest dialogue of Jesus in conversation with anyone in the Gospels. And I believe that's on purpose. Because as much as we are hardwired as humans for connection and created by God for relationship, we are very adept at creating divisions. As we continue in our lives with this period of physical distancing, created not by us, but as a preventative for this virus, it continues to be very important not to let our physical separateness stop us from being connected to being a connected people. In fact, my wife pointed out this morning is that our language around this we should use the term physical distancing rather than social distancing, because, like we're talking about today, social distancing kind of creates a sense that we're disconnected, whereas physical distancing is a little bit different. What we should notice from the gospel is that Jesus brought this woman back from isolation only through his intentionality and his perseverance. He had a choice at each stage of the conversation with her to move back or to be present, to step into her world of isolation or to retreat from it. And this is important for us to reflect on, because perhaps we have encountered this dynamic over the past few months in our lives. Like when we've reached out by phone or by email, maybe people at first were short-tempered with us or even hesitant to talk. The pushing away we might have felt could have caused us to give up on that person, especially since we may have our own fear and anxiety. Why go the extra mile for some when it's easier to say, I tried once, but obviously they don't want to be bothered? Or I'll call someone I know who won't be negative or sarcastic like that. Today's gospel reminds us to not only call the people you like, but also call the people that you don't like, the difficult ones, the ones who make you feel like $1,000,000, and the ones who are also really difficult. It's also good to remember that Jesus was not the only one who had to be intentional and persist in the conversation. The woman, too, had the choice to retreat from Jesus or to stay the course. When she recognized that Jesus was genuinely reaching out, she recognized also her need to stop arguing, to receive the living water of love being offered. So can you see yourself in this woman? Right? The phone rings and you see the number and you're like, oh God, not them. I don't want to take that call. Oh no, it's Father Andre. Well, it's about time. It took a crisis for him to finally call me. Or, oh, she's so cheerful all the time. She drives me crazy. I don't want to talk to her. I say this because all of us who have professed to be transformed by Christ, whether we feel on the margins or in the center of things, share in this responsibility to each other. Talking even for 5 minutes with someone, sharing concerns, fears, joys, and even a short prayer can be a day changer for some and a life changer for others. But the second thing it does is it helps you and I, the caller, feel less isolated ourselves. So many times we wait, bitter and rejected because we don't feel included, when all the while God has also given us the opportunity to minister to other people. In other words, we need each other. God placed us together, each one of us, on purpose, and we can be mindful and encouraging to each other to be a source of strength more powerful than any virus or anything that can come against us and threaten to keep us apart. In the conversation with Jesus, the woman at the well is transformed and transfigured by love. The love she had been hunting all her life. The only love which could quench her deep thirst. Jesus sits casually at the edge of the well and he talks to her. He speaks to her directly. He's comfortable with her. He offers her new life, a friendship with him. He wants to offer us, brothers and sisters, the same thing, a real relationship with him. How does he encounter us? He sits in the same place that we are. He meets us in a place where we carry our shame and maybe we want to hide. And he wants to love us and give us a new, deeper relationship with him. And yet a lot of times we try to keep him at a distance. I know that I can do that. My life goes along and my relationship with God is that I'm here and he's up there. Life is good and I have it all under control. I will look up at God who is very far away and say, all's well down here, God. I'll let you know if I need you. I think I don't need God. I have my life in control. Or so I think until the next natural disaster in daily life comes along. Then I suddenly realize, oh, I need God in my life. Help me, God. What really fascinates me about this gospel is what the woman at the well does after her encounter with Jesus. Does she remain in the presence of Jesus, the accepting, loving stranger, savoring his presence? She does not. What she does is pretty remarkable. She runs back to the very people who had caused her to feel rejected, shamed, and isolated, to run back to her neighbors, to her community, and share the good news of her encounter. That surely is the truest, strongest sign of her transformation. And it's also a sign of the enduring strength and depth of community and our ties of kinship and friendship, and how important that is these days. As we go through this time of enforced isolation, with all its fear and confusion, potential for greater loneliness, may we find new ways to hold on to the sense of community and the ties which bind us together. Christos Voskats.